There are people you can hurt and walk away from. And then there are people whose absence changes the temperature of your entire life. Leo belongs to the second kind. Hurting a Leo doesn't always cause chaos. It doesn't always lead to arguments, revenge, or loud endings. More often, it leads to something far more unsettling: silence. A silence where warmth disappears, where encouragement fades, where the person who once stood firmly beside you is suddenly gone, not in anger, but in certainty. In 2026, this pattern is becoming impossible to ignore. Because when a Leo is hurt, something irreversible happens inside them. Not loudly, not dramatically, but completely. People often mistake Leo's generosity for permanence. They assume loyalty will endure anything. They believe forgiveness means access will remain. It won't. And what follows isn't punishment, it's consequence. Today, I'm going to walk you through 20 reasons you should never hurt a Leo. Not to scare you, but to explain what truly happens afterward. Why karma doesn't rush. Why it doesn't announce itself. And why once it arrives, it feels less like revenge and more like realization. If you've ever felt someone disappear from your life without a fight, or if you are a Leo who knows this shift from the inside, stay with me. Some lessons only reveal themselves when it's already too late to undo them. Reason number 20. A Leo never forgets how you made them feel. A Leo may forgive your words. They may excuse your behavior. They may even stay polite long after the damage is done. But what a Leo never forgets is how you made them feel when their heart was open. Leo experiences loyalty as a living bond, not a casual agreement. When that bond is broken, something is recorded internally. Not as resentment, but as clarity. From that moment on, you are no longer seen through the same lens. The warmth doesn't vanish overnight. It slowly withdraws, like sunlight leaving a room at dusk. And this is where karma quietly begins. Not because Leo seeks justice, but because trust once fractured at that level can never return to its original shape. The life lesson is simple and uncomfortable. How you treat someone when they are genuine with you becomes permanent memory. If this truth feels familiar, comment. If this resonates with something you've lived, because once that emotional record is written, the story has already changed. And that leads us to the next reason. Reason number 19. A Leo's pride is not ego. It is structure. Many people misunderstand Leo's pride. They confuse it with arrogance or attention-seeking. In reality, Leo's pride is what holds them upright when everything else collapses. It is the inner structure that says, I know who I am, even if you don't. When you hurt a Leo through disrespect, humiliation, or dishonesty, you don't just cause pain. You destabilize that structure. And while Leo may never show you the depth of that impact, they immediately begin rebuilding it without you. This is why karma feels delayed, because Leo does not explode. Leo reorganizes. The life lesson here is profound. When you undermine someone's dignity, you don't break them. You remove yourself from their future. Comment if this reflects a situation you've witnessed or experienced. Because once Leo restores that inner structure, there is no space left for the person who damaged it. And that naturally brings us to the next truth. Reason number 18. When a Leo loves, it is without reservation. Leo does not love cautiously. They do not measure affection or ration effort. When a Leo chooses you, they choose you fully, with presence, consistency, and emotional availability. There are no hidden motives in that love. No manipulation. No silent scorekeeping. That is why hurting a Leo carries such weight. You are not rejecting half-hearted affection. You are disregarding something that was offered sincerely and without armor. And the universe responds to imbalance, not through punishment, but through removal. The life lesson is unavoidable. When you fail to value wholehearted love, life eventually withholds it. If this resonates, comment. If this feels meaningful to you, because when that kind of love leaves, it doesn't announce itself. It simply never returns in the same form. And from here, the consequences begin to deepen. Reason number 17. A Leo does not react immediately, and that is what makes it final. When a Leo is hurt, many people misread the pause that follows. They expect anger. They wait for confrontation. They assume silence means weakness or confusion. It doesn't. That pause is assessment. Leo steps back, not to punish, but to understand exactly what just happened. They observe your words, your actions, and most importantly, your consistency after the harm. And once the pattern becomes clear, something settles inside them. Not rage, not revenge. Resolution. This is where karma begins to feel invisible. Because Leo does not announce the end. They simply stop investing energy where it is no longer respected. The life lesson here is subtle but powerful. Silence after harm is not indecision, it is conclusion. If this feels familiar, comment if this resonates with your experience. Because once Leo finishes observing, there is nothing left to discuss, and that realization changes everything that follows. Reason number 16. A Leo's loyalty is rare, and once lost, it is never replaced. Leo does not give loyalty casually. It is earned through consistency, respect, and shared values. But once given, it is total. Leo stands beside the people they choose, not only in celebration, but in difficulty, doubt, and silence. That is why breaking a Leo's trust carries such lasting consequences. When loyalty is violated, Leo does not bargain. They do not negotiate their boundaries. They simply withdraw the devotion that once protected you. And karma responds accordingly, because when you show the universe you cannot honor loyalty, it slowly removes loyal people from your life. Not as punishment, but as correction. The life lesson is unmistakable. What you fail to protect, you eventually lose. Comment if this truth reflects something you've lived through. Because once Leo's loyalty is gone, no apology can recreate the conditions that allowed it to exist in the first place. And that leads directly into the next reason. Reason number 15. A Leo's trust is a privilege, not a guarantee. When a Leo trusts you, it is intentional. It means they lowered their guard. It means they allowed you access to parts of themselves most people never see. That trust is not naive. It is deliberate, and once it is broken, it does not reset. A Leo may forgive. They may remain present. They may even offer kindness, but the original trust, the effortless closeness, the emotional openness never returns in the same form. This is where karma becomes deeply personal, because when you betray trust, freely given life mirrors that experience back to you. Connections become thinner. Conversations feel guarded. Opportunities quietly close. The life lesson is clear. Trust is not lost in one moment. It is lost when respect disappears. If this resonates, comment. If this holds meaning for you. Because once Leo learns who you are under pressure, they never need to relearn it again. And from here, the separation becomes undeniable. Reason number 14. A Leo's dignity decides when the story ends. Leo does not beg for respect. They don't chase understanding. They don't explain their worth when it's questioned. Their dignity is internal, not performative. When a Leo feels consistently disrespected, something decisive happens. They stop trying to be understood by the person who refuses to listen. They stop proving what should have been obvious. And the ending that follows is quiet. No dramatic exits, no emotional displays, just distance. This is where karma becomes unmistakable. Because when you take someone's dignity lightly, life eventually removes people who carry it from your path. The life lesson here is simple and unforgiving. Those who know their worth never stay where it is ignored. Comment if this resonates with a situation you've experienced. Because once Leo chooses dignity over attachment, the door does not reopen, and the silence that follows is permanent. Reason number 13. A Leo gave without keeping score, and that is why the loss hurts. When Leo gives, it is not transactional. They don't love to receive something back. They love because giving feels natural to them. Support, presence, encouragement, protection, all offered freely. That is why hurting a Leo creates such a deep imbalance. You didn't just disappoint someone, you disrupted a bond built on generosity without conditions. An imbalance always corrects itself, not through anger, but through absence. The life lesson here is profound. When you take without honoring the source eventually disappears. If this feels familiar, comment if this holds meaning for you. Because once Leo stops giving you, don't notice immediately. You only realize it when warmth is gone from places you once felt safe. And from there, the shift becomes internal. Reason number 12. A Leo's strength is quiet, and that is why it survives. Many people expect strength to be loud. They expect visible resistance. They expect collapse or confrontation. Leo's strength works differently. It shows itself in endurance, in restraint, in the ability to keep moving forward without explanation. When a Leo is hurt, they feel deeply, but they do not stay broken. They process privately. They rebuild internally. And when they rise again, they do so without needing validation from the person who caused the damage. This is where karma completes a cycle, because by hurting Leo, you did not destroy them. You removed yourself from the version of them that follows. The life lesson is unavoidable. Sometimes the consequence is not what happens to you, but what you are no longer part of. Comment if this truth resonates with your own experience. Because once Leo regains their strength, they don't look back. They simply move forward without you. Reason number 11. A Leo loves from the soul, and soul-level bonds do not fade quietly. A Leo does not love on the surface. Their affection carries depth, intention, and presence. When Leo loves you, they see you not just who you are, but who you could become. They hold space for your flaws without needing to diminish you. Their love is not conditional, but it is conscious. So when that bond is damaged, the loss is not ordinary. It leaves a silence that no distraction fills, a space that remains noticeable even in success, even in celebration. This is karma in its most honest form. Not suffering, but contrast. The life lesson here is profound. When you lose a soul-level connection, nothing superficial can replace it. Comment if this resonates with something you felt, but never named. Because once Leo's love withdraws, at that level, what remains is not anger. It is absence that teaches far more than punishment ever could. And from here, the shift turns outward. Reason number 10. A Leo wanted to see you win, and that is why the loss echoes. Leo does not compete with those they love. They amplify them. They celebrate your progress. They protect your confidence. They stand behind you when you doubt yourself. That belief is powerful and rare. When you hurt a Leo, you don't just lose affection. You lose the person who genuinely wanted your success without comparison or envy. And the universe responds quietly. Moments that once felt supported begin to feel hollow. Achievements arrive without the same warmth. Applause sounds thinner. The life lesson is clear. Those who believe in you without agenda are not easily replaced. If this feels familiar, comment. If this reflects something you've lived, because when that kind of support disappears, you don't notice right away. You notice it when you realize no one stands behind you the same way anymore. And that leads us to the next truth. Reason number 9, making a Leo. Doubt their light changes everything. Leo's confidence is not a performance. It is an expression of self-acceptance. But even the strongest light can flicker when it is questioned by someone trusted. If you made a Leo feel unworthy, if you dismissed their value, if you turned their openness into insecurity, that wound reaches deeper than most realize. Because you didn't just hurt them emotionally, you challenged their sense of self, and karma reflects that energy back. Confidence weakens where it once felt solid. Certainty erodes where belief once lived. The life lesson is direct and uncomfortable. What you project onto others eventually shapes your own inner world. Comment if this resonates with an experience you recognize. Because while Leo eventually restores their light, they do so without returning to the person who tried to dim it. And from here, the consequences sharpen. Reason number 8. A Leo's fire warms first, but it never warms before it withdraws. Leo's nature is generous. Their presence brings warmth, energy, and reassurance to the people they allow close. But warmth should never be mistaken for tolerance. When a Leo is hurt repeatedly, they do not explode. They do not threaten. They do not dramatize the moment. They simply begin to pull their fire inward. And once that happens, access ends. This is where karma feels sudden, even though it was building quietly all along. Because the warmth you relied on is no longer available. The life lesson here is subtle but final. Comfort is not permanent when it is taken for granted. Comment if this resonates with something you've experienced. Because when Leo's fire withdraws, it does not return to the same place. It fuels a future where you are no longer present. And that withdrawal leads directly into silence. Reason number 7. A Leo can bleed in silence without ever showing it. Many people assume that if Leo isn't reacting, they aren't hurting. That assumption is costly. Leo often carries pain privately. They process internally. They protect their dignity by not exposing their wounds to those who caused them. So, while you may think the damage was small, something much deeper was unfolding out of sight. And karma notices what you didn't, because pain that is never acknowledged does not disappear. It transforms. The life lesson is difficult, but honest. Just because someone doesn't show their suffering doesn't mean it was harmless. Comment if this truth feels familiar to you. Because the pain Leo carried silently becomes the boundary they never lower again. And from there, access closes completely. Reason number 6. When a Leo retreats, very few are ever invited back. When a Leo is deeply hurt, they retreat into themselves. Not out of fear, but out of self-preservation. They stop sharing. They stop explaining. They stop opening doors that once stood wide. And while politeness may remain, intimacy does not. This is where karma completes a quiet shift. Because the inner world you once had access to is no longer available to you or to anyone who failed to protect it. The life lesson here is unmistakable. Access to someone's inner world is earned continuously, not once. Comment if this resonates with something you've lived. Because once Leo closes that inner space, re-entry is rare and often impossible. And from here, the final separation becomes visible. Reason number 5. A Leo considered you part of their world until you were not. When a Leo lets you close, you are not just included, you are claimed, you are defended, you are protected. You are spoken of with pride even when you are not present. That is what belonging looks like to Leo. But belonging is conditional on loyalty. Once that loyalty is broken, Leo does not debate it internally. They do not wait for proof a second time. They simply remove the threat to their peace, and the removal is absolute. This is where karma stops feeling abstract, because the sense of home you once felt around them disappears completely. The life lesson here is irreversible. Those who break belonging cannot remain inside the circle it created. Comment if this resonates with something you've lived. Because once Leo decides you are no longer part of their world, the distance that follows is not emotional, it is structural. And that leads into the next realization. Reason number 4. A Leo does not need the one who hurt them. Many people confuse Leo's openness with dependence. They mistake devotion for weakness. This misunderstanding always ends the same way. When a Leo realizes they are being harmed, they grieve, but they do not cling. They redirect their energy inward. They rebuild without asking permission. They grow quietly, decisively, and beyond reach. This is where karma feels humbling, because the person you assumed would always be there moves forward without you and does not look back. The life lesson is stark and unavoidable. Love does not require self-abandonment. Comment if this truth feels familiar to you. Because when Leo heals, they do not return to the place where the wound began. They outgrow it. And from here, memory itself begins to change. Reason number 3. Once a Leo stops admiring you, the shift is permanent. Leo's admiration is rare. They do not offer it lightly. When Leo admires you, they reflect your potential back to you. They elevate you through belief. But admiration is not blind. When it is betrayed, it does not turn into anger. It turns into indifference, and indifference is final. This is where karma feels deeply personal, because part of what once made you feel seen, important, and alive quietly disappears. The life lesson here is humbling. Being admired by someone who sees deeply is a privilege, not a guarantee. Comment if this resonates with an experience you recognize, because once Leo stops seeing you as exceptional, you do not become hated. You become irrelevant. And from here, only 2 truths remain. Reason number 2. A Leo was your biggest supporter, and that absence is felt forever. When a Leo believed in you, it was not passive. They supported you loudly when you succeeded, and quietly when you doubted yourself. They defended your name in rooms you were never in. They celebrated you without jealousy. They wanted your growth as much as their own. That kind of support is not common. So when you hurt a Leo, what disappears is not just affection, it is advocacy. And this is where karma becomes unmistakable, because moments that once felt full begin to feel strangely empty. Achievements arrive without the same resonance. Silence replaces encouragement. The life lesson here is sobering. Losing someone who stood behind you wholeheartedly leaves a vacuum no praise can fill. Comment if this resonates with something you've lived through, because when Leo stops cheering for you, the world does not suddenly turn against you. it simply becomes quieter. And now, only one truth remains. Reason number one. When you hurt a Leo, you lose their light, and life feels different without it. Being loved by a Leo is like standing in steady warmth. You feel energized. You feel noticed. You feel alive. That light is not given to everyone. And when it is withdrawn, it is not taken back out of anger. It is reclaimed out of self-respect. Leo does not punish. Leo does not chase. Leo does not explain. They simply stop offering what was no longer valued. And this is the final form of karma. Not suffering, but contrast. Life without Leo's light feels colder. Not because something was taken from you, but because you once had access to something rare and chose not to protect it. The life lesson is final and irreversible. Some warmth does not return once it has been dismissed. Comment if this truth resonates with your understanding. Because when Leo closes their heart, the sun does not rise twice for the same mistake. Conclusion. What karma really means when it comes to Leo. Hurting a Leo does not create chaos. It creates distance, and distance is where realization lives. Leo does not curse people. Leo does not seek revenge. Leo simply moves forward with clarity. Karma, in this case, is not an event. It is the experience of life after someone irreplaceable is gone. It is the quiet understanding that access was once given, trust was once extended, and warmth was once freely offered. And now it isn't. That is not punishment. That is consequence. If this perspective brought clarity rather than fear, you already understand what most people learn too late. And if you value depth, truth, and insight that doesn't shout to be heard, stay connected, subscribe, and continue walking this path of understanding, because some lessons are meant to be recognized before they become permanent.